long time no video, Drew. How goes?
It's impossible. I don't believe it.
Evidence of the old glasses. Nothing up our sleeve. No magic, little Alex. A job for two who are now of job age. The police.
Hey, what's happening, guys? Welcome back to a podcast orange. This is episode 8 or 9.
It's 9.
Episode 9.
Good start.
Great start so far. My name is Jack Siegel, and my good friend, Mr. Tom Crescenzo, is over there. Hello, Tom.
What's happening, guys?
You know, it's interesting. It's like we're doing this podcast, but really there's not much to talk about. Nothing's really going on in the world.
Yeah, no, everything is pretty calm these days. You don't really hear about any kind of civil unrest.
Yeah, it's kind of boring. I wish like something would happen. There's nothing,
Yeah.
there's no news or anything. It's like it's kind of dry.
Like, you don't hear about any like protests for anything. I haven't heard one case of police brutality. All right. Speaking of which, I did a good deed today.
Aww. What did you do?
Well, I kind of, sort of donated to the police for. No, I'm kidding. I would never do that. No, I did. I went to a Black Lives Matter protest today in Long Island, Huntington, Long Island specifically, and it was amazing. Honestly, it was amazing. Like, I would recommend that if what?
Tell us about it.
Hell yeah, I'm gonna tell you motherfuckers about this shit now. But I mean, it is kind of like, if you genuinely believe in this cause and you haven't marched, like, if you're capable, like, I would say definitely try to, because it's an amazing experience. Like, it was a completely 100% peaceful display of solidarity. There was no ill will. There was nothing bad that happened. People were like honking at us from the street and supporting us, sticking like fists out the window and holding up signs of their own. It was great. It made me, because in these past weeks, I've felt like America is truly beyond redemption. Like, seeing all these videos of cops like beating people with no legs to death with nightsticks, like, it makes me really happy to have actually felt the side of this whole history that really wants the change and be a part of it. So I would say that if you're, obviously marching is not the only thing you could do. You could donate. We're still going to list the donation sites in the description of here. You could donate. You could share information on social media. You can try to educate people who are ignorant. You could try to educate yourself. But I will say, like, if you can march, it's absolutely an amazing feeling to have, and it is a good thing, because being one of those bodies adds volume to the movement. It adds volume to the voices. Even if you're just one, it adds that volume, and that's what we need. We need that volume. So I would just recommend it to anybody, and I'm sure I'll be getting out to another one sometime soon.
And let me ask you this, and that's great that you did that. I would have done that, but I couldn't, because of reasons that are too boring to explain on this podcast. And
you're a loser.
I honestly would have. I'm kind of annoyed that I wasn't able to. But let me ask you. So you marched from the Big H shopping center in Huntington Village, Huntington Station, to Heckscher Park in Huntington Village. Now, what was the demographics breakdown for this? Was it?
I mean, it was
black, or
it was Huntington, so it was like, I would say the rate, it was like something like, it was like 60%, white, or just like, some sort of variation of white. And then it was probably like, I would say like 20% like black, and then 20% like other, just kind of general, like, people of color. Just other. There's black. Well, I mean, because I can't tell just by looking at it whether or not they're like
Hispanic,
or they're not the same. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, Huntington has,
but I mean, it was mostly white people. Yeah. It was, and who cares? Like, what does that matter? Like,
no, I don't. I was just curious. Like,
yeah. I'm just saying, I know there's people who will care, who are like, all these white people marching. It's like, so what? Like, they see the fucking problems in society and want change. What the fuck do you care that they're white? Like,
yeah, that's a good thing. It's better that they're out there marching instead of being a fucking naysayer on social media and looking down at all the protesters and the rioters and sticking your nose at it and constantly sharing posts about how bad the riots are and how, hey, there was a cop that was killed and, blah, 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 blah. And, what I'm sick of seeing I'm sick of seeing all these people, and let's be honest, they're mostly like middle-aged fat men that are posting about how they're like, listen, I was just as outraged about the murder of George Floyd as everyone else, but these riots are really bad. It's like, dude,
rich.
you were not really that mad about it because you didn't post anything about the George Floyd death when it happened. You didn't post about it. You're just using that as like an asterisk to make it seem like you're like Mr. Fair and Balanced, when really your priorities are against the rioters. They're not with the police brutality. Just be honest. I talked about this last week. Just be honest and be, just stop fucking hiding behind some
the thing is, it's like, you're right. It is like an asterisk. Like, these guys think as long as they just like stamp I'm not racist, but it's like, well, no, dude. Like, you wouldn't even have to say, like, here's the thing. Like, people be like, don't get me, it's like you said, people be like, don't get me wrong. I was so outraged by George Floyd dying. It's like, really? I didn't even fucking I didn't see you post one thing about it. I saw you in person. You didn't even bring it up to me in conversation.
Yeah, you didn't say shit about it.
You didn't seem pissed at all. In fact, you seemed like you were ignoring it. Yeah. You seemed like maybe you saw it on the news and then you went, yeah, that sucks. And now you feel like you have to say that you were outraged because you're worried about the fucking Denny's burning down or some shit. Like,
it's all about like destruction of property. And really, when it comes down to it, I compare, I think lives are more important than property. I was watching a video last week my friend shared where it was these police, and they're basically like a militarized gear, and they're walking down the streets of Minneapolis, and I guess there's a curfew out there, and some woman was just sitting on her porch, nothing doing wrong. She was just sitting on her porch. There's a black woman, and the cops walk by her, and they're like, "Get the fuck back inside!" She's like, "What?" And they shoot her with rubber bullets.
Jesus.
For sitting on her porch. Cops have no sense of like, and I know we're generalizing, like, yes, obviously, your dad is a good cop.
Honestly, no. I'm done with this fucking individual good cops all right? We're not generalizing. They're being given orders to fucking do this and they're following them. Like, fuck that.
I'm saying that not every single human being that's a cop is a piece of shit. However, they have this obnoxious fraternal attitude that like they have, and some cops don't like stand, but some cops are like are whistleblowers for the bad cops. But I hate just as much as the corrupt cops, the cops that like stand behind their corrupt brothers.
Well, the thing is, if you're supposedly a good cop and you don't speak up when you see injustice happening, you are a bad cop.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if you've never beat somebody to death in the street, or you've never arrested somebody for their race, or you've never been a piece of shit otherwise. If you're supposedly a good cop, it's your job as a good cop to see, when injustice occurs within your line of work, you need to immediately sound off on it and work tirelessly to bring those people to justice. None of these supposed good cops have been doing that. In fact, they've been doing the opposite. Not only have they been quiet, they're going to barbecues and fucking community football games and shit with the same fucking cops who got away with murder last year.
It's also like
it's bullshit.
Not only are they a bad cop, but they're also a criminal, because they're accomplice. They're what, like the bad cops are turning. Those cops are turning a blind eye to the cops that are breaking the law. So what you're doing is you're basically being an accomplice to a criminal. You're doing the exact thing that you're supposed to serve. You're basically it's like a firefighter becoming a fire.
Yeah, you bring it up my exact joke from the last episode.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, remember I made that?
Well, we're running out of material, I guess.
Yeah, this might be the last episode of the podcast.
We made it 9 episodes in. We're packing it up.
Yeah, no, it's because the thing is, though, to me, another analogy you could make is it's like if you're claiming that you're a good teacher, but you know that half the teachers in the school are molesting children and you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to claim that you're a good teacher, it's your job to call out those child molesters immediately. If you're just going to dick around and be like, well, not all teachers are bad. Like, fuck you. You let these people get away with raping kids. Like, to me, it's the same. That's the same. Yeah. That's the analogy that makes sense. Because it's like, these cops are like, well, not all of us are bad. It's like, well, then why aren't you doing anything about the bad ones? And they're like, well, because actually we are all bad. Like, it's almost like that's what it is. Like, I mean, Buffalo, and I will say last week I was sort of condemning the rioting and saying that it's counterproductive. But now it's like these cops are, and we see videos of it every day in the city. These cops are fucking attacking peaceful protesters with rubber bullets, nightsticks, and tear gas. If you're going to get gassed for exercising peaceful First Amendment rights, what the fuck else are you supposed to? You know what I mean? Like, if doing the right thing.
And they're not even doing anything. They're not even doing anything like violently, and it really comes down to like the personalities of police officers. I mean, I think it starts from their training and it starts from their recruitment. You know, my sister was telling me about this. Like, she was doing this study, which they found that like cops, the way that they recruit young people is not like, they're not advertising as come join the police force where you can protect and serve your community. You help people out. You're the friendly cop that gets your cat out of the tree and all that shit. No, it's like they recruit kids by like, you want to be a fucking badass and become a cop and just like kick people's asses and and dominate. And like, so all these dumb assholes look at that and been like, well, you know, I've been a piece of shit my whole life. How do I get paid to do that? And they become a cop.
It's like you see like a fucking ad to join the police force, and it's just like a commercial where like a cop is like water skiing fully naked with like 3 hot chicks on his shoulders, just with like a police cap on, and then it's just like, join the police force, you'll get the white pussy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's they have this like, they're like spoiled brats. The way that I remember when Eric Garner's whole death happened, and it was like the same year as Michael Brown and all these different examples of police brutality involving black people dying. And Bill de Blasio said that, like, you know, he was kind of saying like, you guys need to do better and stop this shit from happening. And all these cops just like turn their back to him. It's like, he's not attacking you individually. He's saying like, as a whole, you guys need to do better, which by the way, you do. It's like you're a bunch of spoiled brats that can't handle any semblance. You can't handle any semblance of criticism. What you know what I mean? It's like, it's childish.
Because that's the thing. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they need to do better. They want to hear that their power is going to be maintained and unchecked. That's all they hear. Yeah. It's not about, oh, like, well, Mr. Mayor, how could we actually change the police force? It's, no, fuck you, Mayor. We don't need to change shit. And in fact, if you don't give us more military weapons by next year, we're going to raise hell at town hall. It's like, you know what? Fuck you guys. Like, honestly, like, I think of the Buffalo PD, who they all stepped down from the riot squad. And here's the thing, I'm bittersweet about that because, hey, less cops in riot gear sounds good to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But the reasoning, they were like, well, we feel like the 2 cops who knocked over that 75-year-old dude we feel like they weren't treated fairly. So we're just going to throw a temper tantrum and quit. It's like, you know what? If that's really how you feel, then maybe all cops are bad, because fuck you guys. Like, that's literally what you said. You basically said, you guys are going to try to bring justice to these police officers? We don't have justice in Buffalo. There's no justice in the Buffalo Police Department. No, sir.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we can't be held accountable for anything. It's like, you guys should be, if you're a cop, you need to be more calm than the average citizen. You need to be able to go
accountable. You want to hold me accountable? What are you, a loser?
Yeah, what are you, a pussy? It's all these like bullshit terms. And I mean, people were like, I saw one guy post on Facebook that, and this guy is a giant fucking asshole. He's an older comic, and he posted, that, these like, well, wow, everybody loses their mind because one 75-year-old was pushed to the ground. I mean, what's the big deal? Like, who gives a shit?
Oh, like that could be your fucking grandfather. 175-year-old. Actually, there's probably thousands of 75-year-olds who get maimed by cops who you never hear about. Every year, like,
his name is Kevin Downey Jr. and he's a fucking douchebag. Fuck.
Yeah, fuck that dude.
Fuck him.
No offense. Like no offense to him as a guy, but actually, yes, fuck that guy. Fucking
Yeah,
Kevin
fuck
Downey
that.
Jr.
We don't
Fucking shitty
the
ass
only time
comedian.
we'll ever name names as if I legitimately hate them as a human being, and I fucking hate that guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty you could go for. Like, I mean, there's so many. If we started naming the names of all the shitty comedians on Long Island, I think that would probably make this a 3-hour-long podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
That guy fuck him and his fucking frosted tips. You're like 50 years old. Why do you have a Justin Bieber haircut? You fucking.
Yeah, right. Like you're literally in your 50s. Why does your haircut look like 2D from the Gorillas? You idiot.
Yeah. Fucking bootlicker cocksucker. George Carlin be rolling in his grave, you fucking asshole.
Oh, tell him, Jack. Tell him.
Fuck you. Fuck you and your fucking ilk. I hate that guy. I hope he fucking drowns.
I've never met him personally.
I have. I hate that guy.
For the record, I have never met Kevin Downey Jr. personally. All right, but whatever. So yeah. Either way, getting back to what I was kind of saying is it's just like crazy to me that the attitude of these cops is like, oh, if they actually are going to try to serve justice and hold us accountable for the mistakes we make, we're just going to step down and fucking close our ears and eyes and go, la, 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 la. It's like, what kind of fucking mentality is that? You know what that says to me? That basically, it's like them saying, if you're not going to let me beat the shit out of anybody I want, why should I even be a cop?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like if you, the point of cops, violence should be a last resort option. Just like it should be like if the fact that like police involved deaths happen at a high rate is really phenomenal. It should not like phenomenal good way. Just like it's insane.
It's phenomenal.
It's fantastic.
It's wondrous.
But like if you go to England, for example, the police force doesn't have guns. And they don't have these levels.
I'm sure they have certain types of response teams that do, but yeah, like if you get pulled over on the street in England for speeding, the cop's probably not going to have a fucking gun on his waist.
Well, the cops in general aren't supplied guns, and they don't have these levels of problem because they're trained in de-escalation and also in like criminal justice, and they have all these fucking degrees. And that's
the thing. Europe is like, if we're gonna have cops, we want them to be smart. Yeah. America's like, what? You dropped out of high school? Why not be a cop?
Hey, were you a bully in high school and just a fucking dipshit? You want to get trained to do that? And
it's like, hey, did you like shoving kids' faces in the dirt and giving atomic wedgies? We have just the job for you.
They even have a joke like that at Harold and Kumar go to White Castle when they get pulled over by a cop, and like Kumar is like, let me guess, you were like the biggest fucking douchebag in high school, and after when you graduate, you're like, how do I act like this when I get older? I know people from high school that were complete dicks, and guess what they're doing now? They're a fucking cop.
Yeah,
and like honestly,
it makes me think of our sorry to cut you off, but it makes me think of our good friend Nick Tillelli. It makes me think of this bit he has where he's just like, oh, I guess I don't want to burn his material, but he has a bit where he's basically just like, yeah, the fact that all my friends from high school became cops, that's what makes me worried about cops.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the bit verbatim. I purposely butchered it.
Oh yeah, that's a funny joke that he told. I like that.
No, the way I'm sure you know which joke I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's like but that's the thought. Also, like, you know, speaking of like comedians and everything, like it reminds me of thinking like, you know, like we said, we know people we are comedians, and we know people that are comedians that are shitheads, but we're not going to arbitrarily stand behind the shithead comedians just because they're comedians.
Yeah.
So
like,
why is that any different for cops?
I'll defend a comedian if they deserve defense, but like if a comedian is genuinely being a piece of shit, not only am I going to not defend him, I think it's good to make it known that he's being a piece of shit. Like if a guy goes into comedy clubs and like every single time he does a show, he gropes girls backstage, and I see that, I'm not just going to be like, well, he's a comic. So no, of course I'm going to fucking sound off about it. And that's what cops should do. But regardless, it's just crazy to me how the initial police response to these protests was so devastating that it almost seems like we'll never get back to like a period where we can trust the police force. Like the way they responded to these peaceful protests, like they saw people in the street trying to get their voices heard, and they said, break out the riot gear and rubber bullets.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of a fucking decision is that?
They also like,
It's like, here's how we make black people trust us. Let's just attack them even more.
Well, it's like their response to police brutality is more police brutality. That's all they know. That's the problem, is that they're not trained to de-escalate. They're trained to escalate problems. They're not trained to solve issues or help community. We're trained just to fucking beat your goddamn ass into the fucking ground. It's just so intense. Like, the cops have just like this intense personality, like,
I think it's just kind of disturbing too when you talk to a cop, just how matter-of-factly they speak and just how cold they really seem when they're on the job. Like, when cops are on the job, they become something that's slightly different than like a human. I'm not saying cops aren't human, but when they're on the job, they're slightly different. Like, suddenly the emotionality and any capacity for empathy is just drained.
Yeah.
And they just become these machines. And they're just like, literally, like, it doesn't even matter. It's like, you could be smoking weed on the street. They're like, excuse me, is that weed? It's like, yeah, my house is like literally 3 feet in that direction. Sorry, I'm going to have to get out of the cop car. If I smell weed, it's a law. I'm going to have to get out and search you. It's like, dude, my house is literally a stone's throw away. It's like, sorry, you should have known the law.
I'm not doing anything wrong, too. And it's also like, what's it called? I think the problem, too, is that,
it's just also because when these young kids, like, you're right about, like, what you said before, how they recruit kids.
Yeah.
It really is because being a cop is, being a cop is advertised as this type of job where it's like, you don't need to pass, you don't need to get good grades to get it. Like, if you're failing high school, like, being a cop is an option for you. And that shouldn't be. Like, somebody who's failing high school should not be qualified to become an officer. Also, it's literally the dumb shit.
Yeah, and well, they're not required to take criminal justice class. Even their training isn't that long. And I went to Malloy College, who the college actually, by the way, right now is getting a lot of criticism for racism. And I remember I was in the one class, and there was these two kids that were like that were going to become cops, and one of them said, like, they were talking about police brutality, and one of them said, I don't think police brutality is a big issue because, blacks are the ones that commit the most crimes. And it's like, dude, this guy is going to be a cop. And I could just like, I'm just looking 10 years in the future of you just like beating somebody with a baton. Like, I just can see it already. You know what I mean?
See,
it's like, and don't get me wrong. Like, I listen, I know people who have dads that are cops and they're good people. And I'm not saying that every single person that's a cop is a piece of shit. I know people that
honestly, but I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be fully honest. If your dad is a good cop and he doesn't call out other police officers when they do bad things, he's not a good cop. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Your dad's just not a good person if he doesn't do that. If your dad is a good guy and a good cop and he's not calling other police officers out for acts of injustice, he's a bad cop.
Although
period, exclamation point, no argument.
Well, to play devil's advocate for an argument for a second, I feel like the problem is with that, and I agree completely that you should call out bad cops, but the problem is there are many people there are good cops that have called out bad cops, and what happens to them is they've gotten fired from their jobs. So many people get fired, and they lose their pension, and they get like blacklisted, and that's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's like, and so it's like you're so to be fair, and I know people might be rolling your eyes. I know you're probably rolling your eyes right now.
I'm not. You can't see my eyes, but I promise you I'm not rolling them.
Okay. I just feel like for some people they might be like, this guy is a piece of shit and I fucking hate him. But like, I don't want to lose my job, and I don't know.
No, if your job requires you to protect a criminal from getting justice served to them, quit the job. Go work in a fucking factory. Like, seriously, like, if that's your job, if part of your job is, if I don't let criminals get away with crimes because they have a badge, I might get fired, then you need a new job. That's it. Period. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry. I've been losing a lot of sympathy for cops this past week.
No, I get it. I am too. I mean, there are a lot of cops that have become other things. I used to have a landlord who was his job beforehand was he was a cop, and it's just like they just have like this intense demeanor about them. people shouldn't be afraid when they get pulled over by the police. I mean, people should be like, it should be like, fuck, like, all right. But like when I get pulled over sometimes, when I get pulled over, I'm like, fuck, like, Jesus Christ, and I hope that the attitudes are changing. And I just saw that Minneapolis has voted to disband their police department and have it be replaced by civil servants.
I mean, it's kind of weird. The language is weird. I don't think they're actually trying to get rid of officers. They're just trying to take the massive amount of budgeting that they've put into the police force and instead disperse it amongst progressive community programs that stop crime before it happens. That's the idea. But it's also just, I don't know, it's crazy to me because people are still giving, like, people say, why would you riot? Why would you smash the windows? Even last week I was saying that. But now I think about it, it's like, all Colin Kaepernick did was kneel. And 90% of America jumped down his throat.
He didn't do anything wrong. He kneeled during a song that you place so much value on. A song that was written like at a time when America was much more racist than we are today. I mean, at
a time when America had slaves. We had slaves at that point. Like that's how bad it was. Like, I'm so sick of these mandatory rituals. Like, quick story, I actually got I got yelled at a few years ago because I didn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and the story. Well, it was very much like a Curb Your Enthusiasm moment. Little known fact. They yelled at you for not standing, but you were actually just really short the whole time. No, I'm kidding.
Same height. What are you talking about?
True.
What's it called? It was like one of those events at the middle school that we were. It was like they were trying to build this shopping mall in this park where I take my dogs for a walk. So a bunch of people came there to say like, "Hey, we don't want this mall to be built." We ended up being successful, and the mall was not built. But so I sat down. It's like it was a middle school auditorium, and I sat down with this girl that I used to go to high school with, and her husband, who she also went to high school with, was like on the school's board of education, and it was like they're like, we're doing the Pledge of Allegiance now. I'm like, really doing this? And
no, we're really gonna do this now, right now.
Okay, and then so everybody stood up. I'm like, I don't want to fucking stand up, no. And then she was like, I could tell she said like, you're really not gonna stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. And she's like, really? That's really insult. Like, I'm like, why don't you mind your own fucking business? Like, why do you care what I do? And then she was like, her husband was like, because I guess he was just like trying to like, all right, like just relax, forget about it.
He's like, babe, can you please calm down?
Like,
please.
You're embarrassing me.
She's like, I don't need to witness you getting into another screaming match in public. It's been like the third one this week.
You're like, exactly. You're a fucking 24-year-old Karen at that point, just like yelling at people for not standing up for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
It's just like, why do you care?
What did she say to you though? Because I remember you telling me the story.
She was like, when it was over, she sat down. She's like, my brother is fighting right now in Iraq, and he's doing it, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm like, he's not fighting for the Pledge of Allegiance. Like, he doesn't give a shit about it. Like, I'm sure when he's out in the desert fucking killing fucking Arab people, like, this is all for the Pledge of Allegiance. Like,
see, that is a hilarious argument she made. She's like, you really need to stand for the pledge. My brother is out there killing brown children for your rights.
Yeah, exactly. My brother is out there serving Halliburton and Exxon Mobil for your rights right now.
See, my brother is out there killing brown people for the Texaco Oil Company, and you have the nerve to not stand for the pledge when my brother is literally torturing innocent people for oil? How dare you?
It's like, how are they fighting for my rights? Like, my rights were never threatened by anybody in Iraq. It was like,
and then if they're fighting for my rights, it's like, I didn't want to go to war in Iraq, and they still went. So fuck them. They're not fighting for me. They're fighting against what I want.
I've never been in a position where, like, man, I want to go to the store today, but I can't because of Iraq. Like, you know, this is not like, they're not.
It's like, yeah, I really wanted to get that new TV today, but Iraq, man.
Yeah, I really wish somebody would go over there and kill those people because they're really impending on my rights as an American. Like,
I really wish we could just commit enough drone strikes on them. That way I could more confidently and safely go to Applebee's every night.
Everybody's life was fine before and after, like, we went to Iraq and Afghanistan. It was just a bunch of dickheads from a terrorist militia that blew up a couple of buildings. And I know I'm like totally undermining 9/11 right now, but
it was just a couple of dickheads who blew up a couple useless buildings. No big deal.
That was the worst way to ever
describe
9/11.
Here's the thing: you're not undermining it because you're not even telling the story right. It was really just the U.S. government, so
that's
true. There weren't even any dickheads to begin with.
It was really just George Bush that did that. But
it's crazy. Like this all these political crap right now brings back shit from back then. Like I remember being a kid when that shit was happening, and now it's like it still seems relevant, especially when you have Bush trying to sound off like he's some kind of noble grandfather for America. It's like, fuck you, you're a fucking war criminal.
Well, everyone has George Bush died. Everyone has nostalgia for Bush now, and I will admit, like, I would take him over Trump, but it's weird how people look back and like,
dude,
you know what,
honestly,
you're a piece of shit, but you're not as big of a piece of shit as Trump.
No, just as bad, dude. The Bush family has direct ties to the Nazis. Like they're just as bad. They're evil.
Think the Trumps are the worst. The Trumps are like an absolute cancer.
Of course, the Trumps are cancer. I'm just saying they're both. I think in this case they really are equally evil. The Bush family is an evil family. Like Bush they actually
voluntarily. That's what I think is a big difference.
True.
Bush, when Obama came to office, Bush said to Obama, he said, like, we want you to succeed. Bush didn't. Trump is like the biggest piece of dog shit that ever walked the earth. And, you know, getting back to like the Pledge of Allegiance, the actual story behind how the Pledge of Allegiance started, I don't know if you guys know this fun little Jack history lesson for you.
History lessons with Jack Siegel.
Yeah, it started
that needs to be a segment on the podcast now. It's like, and now, folks, it's time for History with Jack Siegel.
It's just like an animated drawing with me on a chalkboard and everything.
But just like you just wearing like professor glasses and holding like a history book, just like, yeah, so you know.
Yeah,
go on. What was the story about?
The Pledge of Allegiance started off. It started off in the 1950s because of McCarthyism, and what's it called? Joe McCarthy said when all the communist witch hunts were happening, he made it mandated for people to state the Pledge of Allegiance in schools so that kids were not taught to be communists, and it was a way to weed out the communists, people that he killed and had his lives ruined. And Joseph McCarthy was one of history's biggest villains. So we're basically just repeating this tradition that Joseph McCarthy fucking did. And sorry, but your mic just totally fucking fucked up there before. So I was like, I didn't really know what you were saying. But
I mean, I wasn't. To be fair, I wasn't really saying like whatever. It doesn't matter. But no, it's kind of interesting. It is kind of interesting. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Now you're good.
All right. So, but it is kind of interesting how we really we just recite this kind of. It almost seems like a pagan ritual.
Yeah,
like it's from an era that represents one of the most ugliest times like in U.S. history. But we just keep doing it. It's like, why? Like, why do we keep doing this? Like, why can't we just be Americans and be proud of our country? Like, if we have to sing the national anthem, we will. But it's just like, why do you have to have kids every day in the beginning of class stand up like fucking robots and like give a salute? Like it's almost like they might as well just be sticking their arms out and saying Sieg Heil at that point. Like,
yeah, it's like a cult. It's like a form of brainwashing because it's a tradition. When you were in high school, as soon as the bell rung for homeroom, as soon as you knew to get up and put your hand over your heart and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I had another time. I remember in high school, like I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is lame. And I was in homeroom and I didn't do it. I'm like, I'm not standing up. And my homeroom teacher Another
Oh, no.
Karen was like, "You need to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance." I'm like, "No, I don't." And she's like, "Well, I'm gonna make you go down to the vice principal's office." I'm like, "For what?" And she's like,
Yeah, like that's not a
that's not a
you're
rule.
for exercising your free speech.
Yeah, like I'm like, go right ahead. Like I don't care. And then she didn't. And like, because it's like what I would have loved it if she did. She's like, all right, go down to the vice principal, and I would have told him like, yeah, I didn't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Like, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, right. Like you can't suspend me for this because my family will raise hell because it's
Yeah.
unjust, you idiot.
Yeah, they will be that. I would have loved for that to keep happening, but she eventually she was like, all right, fucking douchebag. I don't know why people
Well, are
get
you
so tied up with the pledge and the national anthem, and it's just like, who gives a shit? It's a fucking
it's just this weird thing of nationalism and just these ritualistic sort of mantras that we're just taught to like memorize and recite like literally like a bunch of fucking like people in a church singing church songs. And it's just like I don't see why we need to do this to express pride in the nation. But
Yeah.
regardless, speaking of McCarthyism,
yes.
there's another thing we want to get into. Because and you'll understand why I say speaking of McCarthyism.
Yes.
But so in the past few days, a comedian, a young comedian, kind of at the same level as we are, so essentially just an open micer.
Yeah.
But a young comedian, and I won't say his name, but a young comedian made a list of comedians that he thinks are racist in the Long Island community, and not in the Long Island community. I mean, that list would be 5 pages long. but he made a list of just basically everybody he supposedly, according to him, knows for a fact is a racist in the comedy community. And he listed a lot of names, and some of the names I definitely thought made sense. Some of the names didn't really make sense at all and stuff. But I just wanted to kind of like, it's just sort of like, I get it. We're supposed to be calling out racism right now.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be voicing our concerns when we see injustice happening. But is that really the way to do it?
Yeah,
is that really how you want to do it? You want to just lump them all into a long list, not even tagging them?
Yeah,
and then just like make this you just make this baseless claim. You're like, yeah, all these people are racist. It's like based on what? Based on whatever. And they're like, oh, well, here's some screenshots of social media posts. He's like, well, no, that's not enough. Like, sure, they may have said some sort of ignorant shit on social media, but like, do you have actual concrete evidence that this person is like hateful and damaging? Like,
no, and to be honest, like I'm not a fan of this list. I'm not really a fan of this person. I don't know him personally. I've never met him. Me and Tom have never met him or have heard about this guy beforehand. But I just saw this guy's post and I saw like it was a huge argument. It was like 1,300 comments, and it was a good read. It was like I literally became that like Michael Jackson gif of him eating the popcorn, just like reading that fucking argument.
I want to remake that gif with you, Jack.
Yeah.
You sitting in there like eating popcorn like that.
I really I was having the time of my life. I read every single fucking comment for some reason.
Yo, did you see mine?
Yeah, you got into it too.
Because basically what happened was I saw this dude, because like one guy commented, and he was like, if you don't put Louis J. Gomez on your racist list of comedians, you're hella gay. Yeah. And I was just like, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to go about it. It's like, oh, why don't you put this guy on your list of racist comedians and call him out? You don't want to be a fag, do you?
It's like, what are you, a fucking pussy? You're not gonna. It's such a weird.
It's just as toxic. It's like, bro,
just as toxic.
You don't want to call out racist? I bet you like penis in your mouth.
That's like you're becoming like a fucking like a PC principal type like frat boy of calling out race. It's so weird that happened. But the reason that I say that I don't like this guy just based on a social media profile. I mean, I've never met. He could be like a totally nice guy. Sometimes people have like different personalities online and off. Is because he comes off very smug, and I didn't like what he said about Israel. That's a whole other fucking can of worms for another
Here we
episode.
go with the Jew boy and the. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, dude,
I'm fucking
that
kidding.
would literally take up like a whole other fucking topic.
Yeah, like if I here's the thing, like if Jack and I started talking about Israel, this podcast would probably not end.
Yeah, it would just go on. So I'm not even gonna go into that. But I just don't like the fact that this guy like crowned himself as like the all decider. He basically crowned himself God to decide who he thinks should be able to continue and should not be able to continue working. And his list of reasons why was just rather arbitrary.
Yeah,
And,
like some of them, and again, some of it made sense. Like there was
Yeah.
plenty of names on the list where I was like, well, yeah, they're fucking clearly right. But it's just like, I just because you start listing names like Dave Smith and Aaron Berg. It's like, come on, like if you're gonna claim that Aaron Berg is a racist, you have to have some kind of evidence of that. Like you can't just be like, oh, like clearly this guy's a racist because he's made offensive jokes on stage. It doesn't work that way. No, it's not
we
just
all
about
have.
jokes on stage. Like because everybody's made a fucked up joke. Even people who label themselves as progressive. Like I bet you've made a joke about like aborted babies dying. Like why is that better? It's still fucking death and misery. Like
Yeah,
how can you joke about aborted babies crawling on the floor and dying in pools of their own blood, but I can't make one joke about like a racist Asian accent. No, I'm kidding. But
well,
still,
also like we would all be on this list if this guy knew us because we say offensive jokes all the time. And I was thinking like that doesn't make you can be a racist and make racist jokes, but you could also just like enjoy saying fucked up shit just for a cheap laugh. And it doesn't necessarily make you a hateful racist person.
And also, I also just think one joke where
fuck your mic.
Sorry, are you hearing me all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, just making sure. It's looking kind of funky on my end. But what was I saying?
Oh yeah, with you can make racist jokes, but they're not.
Yeah, no, because here's the thing. It's not even that. It's like here's the thing. Like if you make a racist joke and it's very clearly hateful and just not funny and meant to harm people, get called. You should not be a comedian if that's the way you're gonna go about it. But everybody's made a joke that they thought was just gonna slap, and it turned out to just be like the dumbest, most ignorant sounding shit you ever said in front of a crowd. And it's like, you make those mistakes. Comedy is a learning process. Like, as long as you work to rectify it, I don't think those mistakes should be held over people's heads for their whole fucking lives. Like,
I don't think you should be ruined. Your reputation should be ruined because you made a joke that didn't work. That's what comedy is, a trial and error thing. And the only practice you get of doing to find out if a joke works is when you do it in front of people. It's not like it's not like music where you can practice it. I mean, you practice it off stage as well, but it's not like music where okay, now this is going to sound good. The only way to know if a joke works is if you tell it to people. So
exactly.
It's a hit and miss process.
And like the thing is, getting on stage is super difficult. Like here's the thing: I don't think comedians give themselves credit. Like most people can't even get on stage to begin with. Yeah. And like the fact that you're getting on stage and doing this shit is really, really like it's really hard for most people. Like I think it's okay if you slip up every now and again. You know what I mean? Like it's just like every now, as long as you're willing to work to not let those slip ups happen all the time, I don't think it's something that you should be career blacklisted for.
No, I think that's ridiculous.
I do want to say one thing that was funny about the racist comedians list. And honestly, like a lot of people were pissed about this, but I thought it was just kind of funny in like an ironic way. Like somebody, I don't know if anybody knows who this guy was yet. Somebody made like a counter list where it was
I do know who made that list.
Oh, who made it?
This woman named Victoria Arnstein. I've never met her.
It was really her?
Yeah, I never met her, but I could just tell it was her. And everybody said, like, it's her. Because you could just tell by the way she wrote it. It was like,
I'll give her credit. It's kind of a funny idea. I can see why they're... Yeah. Again, it's just funny to me, like, to see names like Stan Louis and Lazarvero on. Like, when I first read it, I thought it was I thought it was a website dedicated to the legit list. And then when I saw names like Stan Louis and Lazarvero, who I know for a fact are not. I mean, either way, they're not white.
Stan's the man.
But even if they were, like, But it's just like I saw that, I was like, wait, what the fuck? And then I'm like, oh, this is a joke list. It's kind of funny. But people did get pissed off, and like I think it just kind of goes to show the irony of it is like, you know, you have these progressive people who are all like complimenting the first list and sharing the first list and like, yeah, bring these fucking people down, destroy their careers, and then when even the slightest chance of that happening to them pops up, it's like, what do you mean? How dare you? And it's just like, and I'm not saying those people deserve to be called racist. I'm not saying anybody who's put on, like, I love Stan and I love Laz. Like, I'm not saying any of those people deserved to be put on that list. I'm just saying the irony of that situation is kind of funny. How like everybody was just like jumping around like, ooh, we got the racist comedian so mad. And then a racist comedian made a counter list. And you were all like, what the fuck, man? It's like, yeah,
fair. And also, I just feel like some of it's rather it's arbitrary. It also seems like some of these people that you put on this list, you just put them on the list because you just don't like them personally. It almost comes off like it's a personal grudge. And it's like, if you don't like somebody as a person, like, fair enough. But that doesn't mean that this person is now a hateful racist and should never be able to work again. Like, that would be like if I just put, like, here's a bunch of people. It reminded, like I was saying this before, it reminded me of, like, in Mean Girls with, like, the burn book and, like,
ooh, that's exactly what it's like.
It's like high school drama bullshit. And it's like,
that's
this is
what it is.
To go about it.
It's literally just like the burn book from me. It's all honestly, it's almost like if you're in high school and you just went up to the locker one day and you just saw that someone put a huge list on like the lockers and it was just naming off like all these people that you knew in the high school and then yourself. And then at the bottom, it was just like, are all racists in this high school? You would be like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? You'd be like, what the shit is this? Like,
and it's just weird that people, I don't feel like everybody should be, I think some people should be held accountable. And I thought it was.
I think if it's very clear that you are evil or you're saying things that are just so obviously and indefensibly ignorant, yeah, you should be called out for that. Because if we just let that shit go unnoticed, then it'll always go unnoticed and it'll always be a problem. But if we're just gonna call out everybody based on this knee-jerk response, like, oh, he said, like, you know, he said one word that wasn't correct. Like, it's, you know, it's
rather arbitrary, and the criteria isn't clearly defined. And for a lot of these people, he didn't provide any proof that they were racist. So it's like
Josh Denny works for the fucking like Food Network and shit, and like I've seen his tweets and stuff, and like, yeah, he's a little conservative, but I have seen no evidence that he's like a racist person. I mean, if that evidence exists, please show me. If it exists, show it to me. Yeah. But what were you saying?
You're fucking with somebody's life. You need receipts to show that they're racist. And also, it's weird how, like, he lumped in... Generally, like, most of those people were, like, him and me and you. They're just generally, like, no-name comedians. And then he put people like Nick DiPaolo and the Reverend Bob Levy and Anthony Cumia. It's like, everybody... Those are, like, really famous people. I mean, not like so famous that everybody knows who they are, but they're pretty big names. And it's like, it's weird that you're lumping those people in with like no-name comics. It's like, well, what about like, I don't know. It's weird, like an arbitrary thing. It doesn't make any sense.
It is, yeah. It's weird to see a list of racist comedians where you mention Nick DiPaolo and then right after you mention Ricky Sofer. It's like, it's like, how does this coincide? And here's the thing. It's not like Nick DiPaolo and Anthony Cumia, yeah, they're both pretty racist, but it's like, they already know, like, they've been being told they're racist forever. They evidently don't care. Like, you calling them out does virtually no damage to them. And I'm not saying it's good that, I'm not saying it's good that they get to just be racist, but they truly and genuinely could not give a shit about this.
Dude, Nick DiPaolo sells out fucking theaters full of people. Like, he's gonna be like, oh my god, some open micer has said that I'm a racist on a Facebook post. Like, oh my god,
it's almost just like he was it's almost like he was just listing people he actually knew in real life, and then he was like, what about a famous comedian? And then he's like, well, I can't think of any that would be good enough to call out. Maybe Nick DiPaolo would know. It's like, it's just so stupid, and it just makes me feel like the only people who are really like responding to this it's just this circle. It's just a big circle of people who know each other.
It's just a clique of people.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it doesn't do any good because there are people there that like I don't know that they're racist that because you said like yeah Nick like we were saying like Nick DiPaolo, the Reverend Bob Levy, like they're not going to be affected at all by this, but there are people there that are at that level and their reputation, they will be affected. Somebody sees this, if this thing gets trending and because it's been shared a bunch of times, and those people will be affected by this. And you're talking about people's lives here and their reputations. And I just don't think it's a good way to go about it. I don't think it does anything good, except for like certain people where they're indefensible. But
like I'm just like I don't want to be like a racist apologist here. I'm just saying like if you're gonna call people out publicly for being racist, don't just lump them all into a half-assed list and say here they are. No, if you're gonna call people out, call them out individually, one at a time. Actually do the necessary work to get the evidence that shows they're racist. Put it up one at a time. That way, we'll and tag them. That way, if they can defend themselves, they can at least try. They probably won't do a good job, but it's not fair to not even give them a chance. Like, if you're accusing them of being racist and you don't even give them a chance to try to, like, defend themselves, like, you're being just as hypocritical, small-minded, and soulless as Joseph McCartney.
Yeah.
So there you go. We brought it back. Yeah.
We brought it back. But also, yeah, not tagging somebody is like, it's just like, it's so bitchy and like passive aggressive. You know what I mean? It's so like, man, I'm not going to fucking do it.
I think we should make other lists now. Like, why don't we make lists of other annoying things comedians do?
Oh yeah,
you know, like
comedians.
Can we make a list of comedians who share more memes on social media than actual comedy content? How about that? List?
How about comedians that steal others' jokes? Comedians,
comedians who run the light at every open mic. Where's that fucking list?
Comedians that don't book me on their shows. That would be every comedian.
Comedians that don't acknowledge me as a comedian. Where's that list?
Yeah, exactly.
Comedians
that, like. I think I don't think it's a good thing. I don't know this guy. He comes off like a douche, and he's wrong about Israel. So
Jack's like, I just want to get that out there specifically that he's very wrong about Israel.
I just wanted to bring that up. You know what? I don't. That's the thing about like me and Tom are both planning to eventually move to the city and everything, but shit like this makes me like. I feel like so many.
Here's the thing. I know for a fact that I'm gonna have to deal with this. Like, I know for a fact that not everybody's gonna like me, and that people are gonna interpret my words the wrong way. And I'm sure, and I know because when I make jokes on stage, I just don't give a fuck. I know that people are gonna find a way to twist my words into meaning shit that it's not. And honestly, that's okay. Like, you have no control over that in reality. Like, you just kind of have to deal with that. Yeah. What's stupid is when you go on like the internet and you pop, you accuse someone publicly of being something that they may not be, but that very thing is what destroys their career. It's just, I don't know. And I get it. Yeah, like I said, we need a way to call these people out because there are racists in the comedy world. There's racists in every line of work, but there's better, more effective, and smarter ways to call people out with evidence that'll get you support for it.
Yeah, this is just not the way to do it. And I just feel like I don't, and also somebody brought up a point, which I don't know that this is the thing, but they
sorry to interrupt. I have another list idea. Comedians whose haircut looks like Hannah Gadsby.
Hannah Gadsby got that like Rachel Maddow looking fucking hairdo.
Female comedians who are only getting stage time because they're hot. Like, where's that list? We need that list.
Comedians that won't fuck me. Comedians that will fuck me.
There we go.
Where's the list, brother?
That's the list I'm looking for. Comedians that'll fuck me. That's the list I want.
I need to put my microphone in their mouth.
What were you saying?
I was thinking that, like, I don't.
Baby, you like my mic stand? Oh, isn't that mic stand nice and thick, baby? Yeah.
Stuck on this mic stand. I was thinking that, like, this guy, and somebody wrote this. I don't know that it's true. Because people were like pissed off, and there's a guy, but someone's like, you're just kind of doing this for your own ego because this guy, I've never heard of him. You've never heard of him. I feel like most people, unless you're like in like that clique of New York City comedians, haven't heard of him. He might get more well known as a result. that might not have been his intention, but in a way, it's like you're kind of in a way doing this.
I mean,
Also to
it's
yourself.
something that he definitely realized. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure at first, in his mind, he was just like, fuck it, I'm going to make this list. I'm going to put it up. I don't even know if a lot of people are going to see it, but I want to do it. I want to call out people who I think are racist in the comedy community, so here goes. But then when he saw this fucking comment thread blow past the 1,000 mark, he was probably like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Because even like Louis J. Gomez was responding to that on Twitter, and Aaron Berg was responding, and Louis J. Gomez privately messaged the guy. He's like, "Hey, why are you doing this? This is not a responsible thing." And
Yeah,
the guy
I wish
just
he
responded,
did. I really wish he didn't do that.
"No, you're
because
just
it's like,
giving him more credence."
yeah, you're literally and now you're giving him a chance to post a photo of that like conversation, and he could be like, "Oh, look at this dickhead." And it's like, you know, you gave him the power to do that, and now everyone knows that Louis J. Gomez is messaging this guy. Like Louis J. Gomez sending him that message, I guarantee that was the biggest moment of his comedy career.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was like, well, this whole thing is the biggest moment too, and it's like then he responded to Louis J. Gomez saying like "fuck you, asshole" or something like that, and it's like you're doing that. That's like a power move to show like I can tell these really big name comics to go fuck themselves, and like it's a way of like bringing yourself up to their level subconsciously.
Yeah. But I know Louis is an insane man, so I want to see what the messages looked like after he replied, because I'm sure Louis fucking decimated him, and I know he'll never have the balls to post the rest of the convo, but it's like I guarantee Louis probably ripped him a new asshole, because he always does. Like,
and Louis doesn't fuck around. If when Louis J. Gomez has a problem with people personally, he'll throw fists, and he's not afraid to like really, you know, like the guy. To be honest, the guy's playing with fire. Some of these people are like pieces of shit. Some of these people, if you call them out on social media, like the thing about social media, everybody thinks it's just like not real and imaginary. If you go into the real world, if you're talking shit about people publicly, they'll punch you in the face.
Yeah, they'll punch you square in the face. Like, that's the thing. And it's also just like, even if getting punched isn't the necessary fear, it's like, you know what? Like, Louis J. Gomez is a huge part of comedy right now. I would argue that the Gas Digital Network is the single most important platform in stand-up comedy today. In my view, that is an indefensible claim.
And Skankfest is one of the biggest festivals.
I mean, that's a defense. In my view, that's an indefeatable claim, because it's literally like the platform he created with the Gas Digital Network and all of those shows he made and all of those comics that he gave like airtime to and stage time to, and then Skankfest becoming the monster that it was. Louis J. Gomez is quite literally one of the most important people in comedy right now. Yeah, and you're gonna call him a dickhead because you want to. You're gonna call him a dickhead because you want to feel cool. Like, good luck with that.
Yeah, Skankfest is one of the biggest festivals on Long Island. I mean, not on Long Island, in the country. Skankfest is one of the biggest festivals on Long Island.
There is a Skankfest on Long Island, but it's actually literally just a bunch of skanks whoring out doing coke together.
You got to go to Rockville Center to find a real Skankfest on Long Island.
It's like, yo, buddy, I just went to Skankfest. It's like, oh, you mean the comedy show? Oh, no. This is Skankfest Long Island.
This is where they'll suck your dick for Xanax.
This is Skankfest Long Island, where you get to hook up with a girl with one tooth and a scar next to her tit
and pierce nipples. And I think I'm just not a fan of this whole thing. I've never been a fan of call out culture at all. I think it's just like self-aggrandizing and it's just self-serving in the end. And I think there's better ways to go about it. And like I said, there are people that deserve to be called out, but there's also people that if you have a problem with them, you should just message them personally. And if they hey, fuck you fucking piece of shit, then you can call them out. You know what I mean? Why is it shouldn't be the immediate response?
Well, I think I'm not even gonna. I'll give the kid credit here. Like, I get what his point is, and I respect it because if you're a black person in the comedy world right now, and you see what you think are racists getting away with being racist, like, of course you're angry. You want people to know how you feel, and you want to get this out there. That's fine,
Yeah.
but don't do it in a way as arbitrary, hollow, and completely unbased as just a list with no tags and no evidence. Like, do one at a time. Like, if anything, go on Facebook and say, I'm going to be calling out one racist comedian every day, and then just dedicate a day to actually doing it and actually giving that evidence and actually tagging them and actually, because that way I'd be able to see. That way I'd be able to see. I would go to the page and I'd see the argument and be like, oh, he was right. This guy's clearly racist.
Yeah.
Instead, I have to read this list and be like, well, that dude's clearly not racist. That guy is, but that guy isn't. You know what I mean? It's just like,
and it's also like it's I know, I know it's our perception of racism is obviously different than a black person's perception. That's I think an important point to make because it's just like we might not see somebody because we probably know a bunch of people that say stuff and we're like, I never would have thought they were racist, but a black person is like, that's coded racism. And but I think like just making this like high school level drama bullshit kind of undermines the seriousness of it all. You know what I mean? And it's like
it's just also
a real
like
divisive thing that's like basically like might lead to a fucking second revolution. So you're kind of like it does seem like it's kind of undermining the importance of this whole thing.
A little bit, and it just if nothing else, it just seems kind of petty. Like, it doesn't seem like you really like when I read a list of racist comedians that you compiled. It doesn't seem like you really put that much thought into the list. It just seems like you're just like, yeah, this guy's a dick, he's racist. That guy's a douche, he's racist. And it's like, it's just like there's better ways. There are better ways. Like if you're gonna call somebody out, at least have it be J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, and
we'll probably have to get into that in the next one.
And with that being said, we'll probably have to talk about that some other time. J.K. Rowling, she loves trans people. J.K.
Oh shit!
Really has a problem with trans people. I don't know.
You need to go to like Comedy Def Jam and do that bit.
People are, shit!
Yeah, that's right. So check it out, guys. J.K. Rowling, she loves trans people, but J.K. DJ kill that shit. Oh yeah.
I would get like air horns too for people to like fucking like
yeah, right. The hype horns.
Your fucking microphone. I hate your microphone so much. I know this sounds very unprofessional, but
I don't think it's my mic. I don't think it's my mic right now. It might be my internet because the mic is fine, but I'm noticing the recording is a little is like getting shifty. So I think I honestly, this is just like you know what? The next episode of a podcast Orange might have to be in person.
Yeah, it might have to be.
Honestly, I think that might be the move, guys. Episode 9. This might be the last virtual episode we do.
Podcast. Oh my god, it's so emotional. I'm starting to tear from my eyes. We're gonna. I hope you had the time of your life.
It's like you mean to tell me I don't have to set up a bunch of pillows behind my blue snowball microphone anymore? Say it ain't so.
We have to do this in person and talk to each other face to face. This might be the case, yeah. Well,
yeah, because honestly, like if this is gonna be like, because we've been having some technical issues in the past, and it's just like if it's gonna be like this, then it might just be time to make that switch. I'm no longer scared of coronavirus, so if you want to do it, I'm down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might have to be the case.
And that means we just may have video next time.
Oh shit.
Yep, I'm excited. All right, so yeah, that's a sort of like a half announcement because we're not totally sure, but yeah, next time you're watching or listening to a podcast Orange, you might be watching it too because I think we're moving out of the digital realm, folks.
Oh my god, that would be really cool. They're stepping up. Next,
Step up the pod game.
Oh wow. All right. So, any closing remarks?
Any closing remarks? Well,
are you asking me, or are you saying?
I mean,
yourself?
I'm now asking myself.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. But my internet is fucking up again, so it's hard for me to make a closing remark when my internet connection is not going to record it. Did you even hear that?
No, I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, I could see that it was recorded, so the words I said will be in the podcast, but
okay. But
yeah. All right, so
I guess
closing remarks are if you're out there protesting, please be safe, please exercise caution, please be vigilant, and make your voices heard, be loud, and also if you want to call racist people out, please do it in an intelligent way that actually will get people to support your claims.
And I would like to say also that I know I called a couple of people out, but the majority of comedians I love, and you guys are my good friends. And Black Lives Matter. And
Black Lives Matter.
And if you have Amazon Prime, check out Mississippi Burning, because that's like a good movie about police brutality and the intricacies and how we haven't really changed in like the 50 years. And it's got Gene Hackman and Willem Dafoe, so how could you go wrong with those two?
Yeah. Also, you should honestly, this is less relevant, but it's just a great movie. You should watch Dr. Strangelove if you haven't, whoever you are. I just saw it. It's a great movie.
That's a classic. I love that movie.
The movie's amazing. And honestly, it's kind of relevant because it also just kind of shows how our world leaders really truly are incompetent, bumbling imbeciles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, Peter Sellers is great as just this fucking idiotic president. Yeah, no, that is a classic movie.
Yeah, so Dr. Strangelove, watch that. What was the film you recommended?
Mississippi Burning. It's a great movie.
And also maybe Do the Right Thing. That's a good movie. If you've never seen Do the Right Thing, that's a great movie.
Detroit also. I know I recommend that to you. The one Catherine Bigelow made. The one woman who directed The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark Thirty.
Yeah, check those out. So yeah, this is I guess this is just a movie podcast now. We're recommending movies.
Pretty much. We're just referencing movies.
All right. Well, anyway, the last thing I'll say is after going to this protest today, I'm very happy to see that, that I was feeling so pessimistic about America a week before, and now, it made me feel a little bit more confident that we might actually be heading in the right direction. So yeah, I hope that continues. And then maybe by the next episode, we'll be able to we'll go back to talking about dicks and stuff.
I hope so. I miss
dicks.
I miss dicks too.
Do you remember when you complained about our podcast that we talked about too much dick? I miss that.
Now people are like, it's become a liberal podcast. That's good.
Yeah, you guys are sellouts. You used to talk about dicks. Now all you talk about is police brutality.
You guys are a bunch of cucks. That's what we're gonna be.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a cuck cast orange.
A cuckcast orange.
Cuckcast orange.
We're gonna lose our right audience.
We just do the podcast while black people fuck our girlfriends in the other room and we watch.
And we're crying and masturbating at the same time
while doing the podcast.
We're gonna lose our alt-right audience if we keep this up.
Oh, wow. Honestly, I don't know if we have much of an audience, but if any of them are alt-right, just know that I don't want to.
Yeah, you're not our audience. Go watch something else.
If you consider yourself my audience, just know that if you died, I would be happy.
Yeah, that would be a good thing.
Yeah. All right, guys. I had a lot of fun here, Jack. How about you?
Too. I had a great time, and we shall see you next week.
Yep. Podcast Orange signing off. Have a good night, folks. Stay beautiful.